This is the core applied exercise in Module 9. You're going to evaluate an MCC-level coaching session, a recording that demonstrates genuine mastery, where the methodology is invisible and the coaching flows as a natural expression of who the coach is in relationship with a client. Before I guide you through specific segments, I want to set up how to approach this evaluation differently from the ACC and PCC recordings you've already worked with. The listening posture changes at MCC level. Before you listen for specific statements, just listen. Don't open the form. Don't track behaviors. Experience the coaching session the way you'd experience any genuine conversation between two people who trust each other deeply. Notice how the session feels. Notice what the coach does that you can't name yet. Notice where you lose awareness that you're observing a coaching session, and it starts to feel like two people simply in deep conversation together. That feeling, before the analysis begins, is your first data point. MCC coaching creates that experience. Even excellent PCC coaching doesn't disappear into conversation the way MCC coaching does. Trust your felt sense before you open the form. At ACC, your listening was cognitive. Is the behavior present or not? You tracked specific actions against specific statements, checking for presence or absence. At PCC, your listening became analytical at a higher level. You tracked patterns and through lines, depth, consistency, integration across the full session rather than individual moments in isolation. At MCC, you listen holistically. The session as a whole, the flow between moments, the places where coach move and natural conversation become indistinguishable. You're evaluating the quality of a relationship, not just the skill of a practitioner. That requires a different kind of attention, one that holds both the analytical framework and the experiential response without letting either one dominate. Watch how the agenda emerges in the opening minutes. Compare what you see to the ACC agreement you evaluated in Module 7, structured exploration, clear behavioral evidence of A3.1 at a specific timestamp. Compare it to the PCC agreement in Module 8, meaning-focused exploration, deeper partnership, more of the client's world invited in. Here the coach asks one question. The client's response contains the entire agenda, and the coach reflects it back. Agreement co-created in under 90 seconds. That's M3.1 at MCC. The coaching contribution is so light, you might miss it on first listen. The client appears to have set the agenda entirely on their own. That appearance, the invisibility of the coach's contribution, is the evidence of mastery. At PCC, silence was allowing space. Marker 5.5, the coach holds back from speaking, gives the client room to process. That's a deliberate choice the coach makes. The coach decides to be quiet and wait. At MCC, silence is creating space. M5.4, the distinction matters enormously. The coach doesn't hold back from speaking. They create a container where silence becomes the client's workspace. The quality of the silence is different. It has warmth, a held quality, an active presence within the quiet. The quality of what the client says after the silence tells you which level the silence was at. After PCC silence, the client thinks more carefully. After MCC silence, the client discovers something they didn't know was there. The coach shares one observation, brief, personal, offered without attachment to whether the client uses it. Something they noticed, a shift in the client's energy, a word that appeared twice, a quality in the client's voice that changed between two statements. The client takes it and goes somewhere neither of them expected. The observation opened a door the coach didn't know existed. That's M7.2 at MCC level. Shares observations, intuitions, and feelings without attachment. The without attachment means the coach offered it as a gift with no expectation about what the client would do with it. The client's unexpected response tells you the observation landed at a level that directed inquiry wouldn't have reached. Not the individual moments, the pattern across the entire session. An MCC session is not a PCC session with a few excellent moments sprinkled in. The artistry is the coach's default, not their peak performance. The coach consistently operates at this depth. The agreement is organic. The silence is generative. The observations are effortless. The presence is unwavering. There isn't a moment where you think, now the coach is really coaching, because they're always really coaching. When you write your evaluation, that consistency across the session is your strongest evidence for MCC level demonstration. Individual highlights matter, but the through line of quality matters more. The quality of evidence changes at MCC. At ACC, you wrote, coach asked an open-ended question at 4:20. Specific, behavioral, time-stamped. That precision was exactly the right standard for ACC evaluation. At MCC, your evidence describes what happened across a stretch of time. From 4:20 to 6:15, the coach's presence created a space where the client moved from surface frustration to naming a value they hadn't previously articulated. The coach's only contribution was a single observation and silence. The space was the intervention. Same form, different quality of observation. The evidence at MCC level describes what the coaching created, not just what the coach did at a specific timestamp. You'll notice something in MCC evaluation that doesn't happen as much at ACC or PCC. A single coach response demonstrates multiple statements simultaneously. The coach's way of being in one moment might demonstrate M5.1, fully present and spontaneous, and M6.1, noticing nuances of language and energy, and M7.2, sharing an observation without attachment, all at once in a single breath. That's not confused evaluation, that's integrated coaching. The integration itself is evidence of artistry. It shows the competencies have merged into a unified practice rather than operating as separate skills. Note the overlapping statements. The overlap is the MCC level evidence. You have the form, you have the 5-point scale, you have the 3 evaluator considerations, and the full MSR behavioral descriptions for every competency. Your challenge now, rate on a 5-point scale where the difference between meets and exceeds is artistry. Anchor every rating to a specific moment and name the evaluator consideration it demonstrates. Complete the full evaluation after watching the recording in the lesson page exercise below. In the next video, we address the biases unique to MCC evaluation, the traps waiting for you as you work through this recording, and the specific practices to manage them effectively.